He signed the divorce papers with a smirk, as if he'd just won a prize. The ink wasn't even dry when he leaned back, fingers laced behind his head. The same self-satisfied look he'd worn when he closed million-dollar deals, except this time. It was my life he was packaging into a tidy little exit. Outside, the Seattle sky hung low and damp, pressing against the window like it too wanted out of the room. The office reeked of expensive neutrality, gray carpet, white walls, minimalist art meant to soothe. But I found nothing comforting in sterilized civility. Brandon tapped the pen twice on the table before sliding it toward his lawyer. As if cueing applause. Simple, clean, professional, he said, not looking at me. Just how you like things. My smile was polite, practiced. I said nothing. You're lucky I let you quit your job. He once told me when I brought up freelance work. Most men wouldn't. That line had lived in the corners of my mind for years. Like mildew in grout, too subtle to confront daily. Too insidious to ignore. Brandon's attorney shuffled the pages into a leather folder. Across from me, his associate, young, overly cologned, always checking his watch, whispered something to Rachel Meyer as she entered. She shouldn't have been here. Not technically, but she didn't seem interested in technicalities. Just here for moral support. Rachel chirped with a smile too wide to be warm, sliding into the chair beside Brandon like she belonged there. A sliver of silk blouse peeked beneath her tailored blazer, as did a gold chain I once saw Brandon gift her at a company holiday party. I told myself it was innocent. Foolish. You look well, Elena, she added, voice dipped in faux concern. Seattle suits you. Brandon chuckled, lips curling but eyes cold. Let's not drag this out. We've all moved on, right? Moved on, as if the 15 years I gave were an internship. As if stepping aside made room for something better, shinier. I just want a full audit before we finalize anything, I said evenly. That caught him off guard. He blinked. Once, then recovered. Of course, if that makes you feel better. His voice dropped half a tone. The way it did when speaking to someone dimmer than expected. Rachel squeezed his hand under the table. I caught the motion. I wasn't supposed to. They thought they'd choreographed this perfectly. Public dignity. Private humiliation. Me in neutral tones, sitting alone, exiting quietly. I was supposed to sign, smile, and vanish. But some women don't vanish. We adapt. I'll need statements from the last 5 years. All holdings, trust accounts, company shares, anything tied to Carter Tech or its subsidiaries. I added, calm, crisp. A flicker of something passed through Rachel's eyes. Surprise? Annoyance? She masked it quickly. But I'd seen it. Brandon shifted in his seat. Of course, he repeated, whatever you need. My gaze landed on her. Sometimes, I said, letting the words breathe. The end is just the beginning. Rachel tilted her head, amused, poetic. I rose, buttoning my coat slowly, deliberately. My phone buzzed as I stepped into the elevator, Alicia's message. Right on time. I didn't read it yet. I didn't need to. In the cab home, I ignored the city blur and the ache in my jaw from clenching it too long. Instead, I opened the encrypted folder hidden behind 3 layers of apps and a passcode known only to me. It blinked open, revealing files, spreadsheets, voice memos, and a single name in the header. Elena opens a hidden folder on her phone marked, Project R. Naomi Green. The name never once appeared in public filings. That was the whole point. We sat tucked into a corner booth of a cafe in Capitol Hill. Its windows fogged slightly from the early summer humidity. The scent of roasted beans tangled with fresh pastries and jazz humming low from unseen speakers. I had a newborn strapped to my chest in a sling, his breath shallow, steady, and Naomi had already scanned the room twice for ears that didn't belong. You build power in silence, she said, not quite whispering, but not projecting either. The louder they get, the more invisible you become. It wasn't theory. Naomi had lived it, quietly absorbing systems, patterns, people, while Brandon saw her as just my best friend from college who dabbled in marketing. Naomi was dissecting our joint assets before I even knew I'd need to. Listen, she said, sliding her phone across the table. We register the LLC under my name. I draft the equity splits and consulting contracts through 2 layers of shell entities. You make every decision, call every shot, but on paper, I'm just the founder of a modest boutique firm. I didn't answer right away. My son shifted, letting out a soft coo that Naomi smiled at but didn't comment on. That was one of her strengths, she never filled space with unnecessary softness. Just strategy and precision. I don't want Brandon to know. Not even a whisper. I finally said. That's the point, she said again, eyes firm. You'll be invisible. Until you're not. That summer, while I bounced between nursing and napping, I also reviewed operating agreements, memorized offshore rules, and learned what Wyoming anonymity statutes could offer someone like me. Naomi handled the front-facing pieces, networking, early client intake, while I built frameworks, onboarding protocols, digital infrastructure, long-term valuation models. Rachel Meyer showed up one afternoon wearing 4-inch heels and zero humility. The interview had been my idea, my company, my criteria. Naomi humored me and agreed to let me handle it solo. Rachel arrived 15 minutes late. No apology. She took in the house with mild contempt, settling into the home office chair like it was beneath her. I'm used to corporate, she began, before I'd even offered tea. This boutique thing is cute, but I'm looking for scale. I smiled, folding my hands. And how do you define ethical scale? She blinked. I define results. Ethics, slow execution. It was over then, though I let the conversation limp along for another 10 minutes. She dropped names, mostly male VPs she'd flirted into favors, and questioned why I wasn't scaling faster. When I declined to offer her the position, she laughed. You're just a housewife playing boss. That sentence didn't sting. It ignited. Back in the cafe, Naomi looked at me across the steam of her Americano. Eyebrows raised. You okay with her knowing nothing? She asked. More than okay, I said. I need her to believe I'm irrelevant. Over the next 18 months, our anonymous firm landed contracts with mid-sized tech startups and restructured 2 failing nonprofits. Naomi stayed visible. I stayed silent. Brandon never noticed the shift in our financial weight. He was too busy managing Carter Tech, too used to seeing me as background noise. I clicked through a folder on my desktop now. The familiar pulse of quiet thrill rising. One spreadsheet showed year-over-year growth. Another, investment returns. But it was the valuation summary that made me sit still. Elena stares at a business valuation report. $8.3 million net assets, and growing. I built a digital fortress. Everything from bank trails to real estate holdings. Layered and encrypted. The storm outside thrashed against the windows. Wild Pacific winds bending trees into half bows. Inside, my condo glowed in soft amber light. The place was spare, clean, intentional. No photo frames, no clutter, just structure and silence, like my mind when I worked. Alicia Chen sat across from me. Hair in a sleek bun. Eyes moving like a scanner. Her laptop glowed with files I'd spent years assembling. She didn't speak for a full minute. Just scrolled, absorbed, impressed without flattery. You've got the shell LLCs layered like Russian dolls. She finally said, tone clipped. 4 banks, 3 jurisdictions. It's clean, auditable but invisible. I poured tea, jasmine, no sugar, and handed her a cup without looking up. I wanted options, not loopholes. Naomi and I built it to hold weight. You did more than that, Alicia said. You built leverage. The legal assistant, a quiet grad student named Drew, sorted hard copies beside us. File tabs in labeled order, assets, transactions, real estate deeds, holding structures. Alicia motioned to one of the thicker folders. This one, the Nevada property, did he ever co-sign anything? No, bought in my name, cash, through post-nuptial discretionary earnings. Alicia nodded. Washington's community property laws won't cover it. He'll try, but it won't stick. We both knew Brandon would contest. Of course he would. He saw entitlement as birthright, not a claim that needed merit. Alicia pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose, opening a new folder. This is where it gets sharp, she said. Your equity in Naomi's firm, on paper. It's passive, but your fingerprints are all over the back-end strategy. He won't find them unless he already knows what to look for. Alicia glanced at me, half smiling. That's the thing. He thinks he does. Her screen flashed, shifting to a projected trial schedule. She tapped a few keys and opened a shared legal calendar. We move in November. Until then, you say nothing. Let him smirk. Let him believe you won. Rain battered the glass harder now. My tea had gone cold. When we go to court, she continued, you'll need to authorize me full discretion on litigation, discovery, and financial testimony. I reached for the pen beside my notebook. The act felt small, ceremonial. The line I signed wasn't just ink, it was a turning point. Legal and psychological. Let's unmake him the way he tried to unmake me. The room held still. No one moved for a moment. Drew kept typing. Alicia shut the folder. My phone vibrated against the wood of the table. One message. Brandon. Hope you're not hiding anything. My team's thorough. He thought he could outmaneuver me. But I built the blueprint. The IRS regional office was cold in the way only government buildings could be, sterile. Air-conditioned beyond necessity. Its fluorescent lights buzzing with bureaucratic apathy. Alicia leaned forward beside me. Her laptop opened to the encrypted drive Naomi had delivered just that morning. This shell is dirty, Alicia said, voice low, tapping a spreadsheet. Payments routed through a Belize entity under the name E. Rodden Holdings. No paper trail on this side. Not legal, not without disclosure. I nodded, which he didn't file. The forensic accountant sat across from us. Sleeves rolled, tie loosened, eyes scanning lines of digits with the calm of someone who found human behavior in numbers. He tapped a column. This account alone moved close to $2.7 million over 18 months. All masked as consulting fees. But there's no entity receiving consulting. That money was siphoned directly from Carter Tech. Alicia muttered, and it never showed up in divorce disclosures. I don't just read contracts. I said quietly. I write better ones. Later that evening, Naomi and I worked from her co-working space. A warm industrial loft with exposed brick, where soft indie music played under the hum of espresso machines. She looked up from her phone. Brows pinched. Listen to this, she said, and hit play on an audio clip. Rachel's voice crackled through. Loud, smug, and just tipsy enough to forget discretion. They think Brandon's the mastermind? Please, I'm the one who pushed for the offshore plays. I deserve more than bonuses, I deserve equity. Glass clinked in the background. Laughter followed. A man's voice, unidentified, asked something inaudible. To which Rachel replied, don't worry, Alina's not a threat. She was never business material. I didn't speak. Naomi hit pause. She said this 2 nights ago. She was drunk, loud, in a bar full of junior consultants. One of them recorded it. Sent it to me. Why? I asked. Naomi smirked. She once told him he wasn't CMO-worthy material. Payback's a funny thing. Back at my condo, Alicia reviewed the file again. Rachel just admitted, on tape, to influencing company decisions and acknowledging unreported bonuses tied to fraud. If this gets to court, she'll bury him just trying to climb out of the hole. I said, I don't even have to set the trap. They've already stepped in it. A ping interrupted our quiet. Naomi's name lit my screen, followed by a single line. Rachel's trying to get to Victor Zhang. She's pitching herself as the brain behind your firm. He walked into that courtroom as if it were a red carpet. But this was not his show. Brandon adjusted his cufflinks like a man posing for a brand campaign, suit tailored. Smile controlled, and arrogance calibrated to its usual nauseating precision. The gallery was packed. A few reporters leaned forward in their seats. Phones poised. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but they didn't need them. This hearing would feed every gossip blog in Seattle by noon. I sat still at the petitioner's table. Alicia on my right, Naomi 2 rows back, calm as ever. My hands were folded, steady. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I was ready. Judge Harper entered, robed, gray-haired, face carved with patience and a faint interest in spectacle. We're here today to finalize the terms of Carter versus Carter. He began, eyes sweeping the room. Respondent claims undisclosed assets. Petitioner denies. Let's begin. Brandon's attorney rose first, all smiles and false charm. Your Honor, our client has been the sole financial provider for 15 years. Mrs. Carter, Elena, left the workforce early, with no verifiable income of her own. He turned toward me, tone dipped in sympathy. There's no animosity here. Mr. Carter simply asks the court to recognize his ongoing financial contributions and protect the business he founded. I didn't flinch. Alicia rose next. Your Honor, with permission, we'd like to introduce Naomi Green as a witness. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Brandon tilted his head, confused for half a second, until Naomi stood. Poised, confident, the same woman he'd ignored at countless events now walked toward the bench with a folder under her arm and 30 million reasons to be heard. Alicia continued. Ms. Green is the registered founder of Sable Strategies. She will present documentation of silent equity ownership held by Mrs. Carter through layered entities, fully legal. Fully auditable. Naomi placed the folder on the clerk's desk. Inside is proof of Mrs. Carter's operational role, strategic control, and profit disbursement going back 3 years. The judge leafed through the papers. Expression unreadable. Brandon frowned. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. That firm isn't on public record? Naomi said sweetly. Correct. That was intentional. The room quieted as the judge cleared his throat and read from a valuation page. Net assets attributed to Elena Carter through silent partnership structures totaled $30.4 million. Gasps broke out. One reporter choked on her breath. Brandon's mouth opened, then closed, unsure which emotion to settle on: shock, rage, disbelief. He collapsed into his chair like a man who just realized the stage wasn't his after all. Beside him, Rachel leaned closer, voice a low hiss. You told me she was just a housewife. I didn't turn. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I'd already won. As the judge moved on to procedural matters, Brandon's phone vibrated in his hand. He glanced at it, blinked, then blinked again. His lips parted slightly. Rachel has just wiped her LinkedIn and vanished. He didn't need applause. They didn't cheer for me. They stared, like I had just killed a king. Stepping onto the courthouse steps, I felt the swarm of flashing phones and camera lenses. A wave crashing over me. Reporters leaned in, shouting questions like hungry wolves. How did I do it? What are your next moves? Is there more scandal? I breathed against the abrupt noise, tasting victory and fear. I remember Naomi warning. Victory is noisy. Silence will test you more. Her words echoed in my mind as I pushed through the media cluster. I nodded toward Alicia, who fell in step beside me. Both of us moving like battle-trained soldiers through chaos. We reached Naomi's downtown office later that afternoon, sleek glass walls. Muted decor. She didn't celebrate. Instead, she handed me a tablet streaming headline after headline. $30 million ex-wife, hero or villain? Clever gold digger or legal genius? The tone oscillated between awe and contempt, reverence and resentment. They don't know you, Naomi said gently. They only see a figure. I swallowed hard. Public approval fluttered, fine. But I felt unexpectedly hollow. Like the courtroom revealed more than just proof. It exposed me to praise I never sought, and to judgment I hadn't prepared for. That night, back in my apartment, I watched the world respond in real time. Comments flooded in, crypto forums, Reddit threads, news outlets dissecting my life. Some cheered me on, some questioned my motives. The digital echo chamber was as volatile as any courtroom. Then an encrypted email pinged in my inbox. Subject: Opportunity. Sender: Victor Zhang. His name was known, private equity titan, rumored to expand his reach into boutique finance. The message was brief. Elena, congratulations. I've been watching your case. I see integrity and intellect. I have a proposal. Partner with me in London. More on numbers if you answer. My heart pounded. I'd fought Brandon to reclaim rights I should have had, and won. Now someone I'd never met wanted me to leverage that brilliance internationally. My chest tightened, not escape, but expansion. The flame I'd lit in Seattle could become a beacon abroad. I typed back without hesitation. I'm in. Alicia looked at me over her mug of chamomile tea. Eyebrows raised. London? I nodded. It's not just healing, it's a launch. And then my phone vibrated. Alicia frowned as she looked at the screen I couldn't see. Brandon's lawyer just filed a petition. She said, voice low. He's challenging the asset division ruling. My stomach dropped but my jaw sat tight. I'd just slain the king. Now, someone was sharpening a blade. They think this is over. They're wrong. He lost in court, so he turned to the one place truth doesn't matter, the internet. The words burned inside me as I scrolled through my mentions. The hashtag was everywhere. Hashtag gold digger Elena. Screenshots, memes, false claims spun with confidence. Married a loser to build an empire. Used Naomi to hide her millions. The smear was seamless. I remembered Alicia's warning. You won the facts. He'll fight feelings next. That voice snapped me out of the spiral. I was no stranger to stoicism. But this assault was different. It struck at my character. My integrity. I swallowed the bitterness and closed my laptop. We convened in Alicia's home office, cream walls. Diplomas framed neatly. Naomi joined via video, her face mask of concern. I felt the weight of contempt lullabies from thousands of strangers. Brandon's PR team had mobilized. They planted stories on fringe sites, paid influencers to repeat lies. I saw a podcast clip where Rachel chimed in, her voice dripping with scorn. She hid everything behind Naomi. "You're hearing my side, why shouldn't you?" she said. Voice sulking. Alicia looked at me, eyes sharp. "We counter with facts, your trust fund statements. Timeline of LLCs. The valuation documents." I bit my lip. Every statement I release, it'll fuel more headlines. I paused. Do I want to become known as the woman who justifies her wealth? Naomi's voice cut through. This isn't about money. It's about truth. People will believe the loudest voice unless we give them ours. Tables turned. Alicia agreed to draw up a strategy, controlled release of redacted financials. Interviews highlighting my story, not the wealth, but the independence. We'd launch a press release. Then sit for a high-profile sit-down with a trusted news anchor. I hated the spotlight, but this was no longer about me. It was about reclaiming narrative control. Just then, new chaos erupted. An edited clip from the courtroom circulated, a moment of me smiling as Brandon slumped. It was twisted to seem like mockery. The image burned bright on screens and news tickers. My stomach dropped, chest tightened. It felt personal, cruelly personal. Naomi's phone buzzed. She read, then looked me in the eye. "It's time we use the real footage." Alicia leaned forward, determination in her gaze. "We have full video, uncut. We can release it now. Provide context. Show the moment for what it was, a flicker of relief. Not triumph." My heart pounded. The thought of stepping into that glare terrified me, and yet, this was the moment I'd been preparing for. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Let's do it. I kept my voice calm. But inside, every cell was alight with resolve. The room shifted around me. Alicia nodded. Naomi's expression softened. We had a plan. Brandon was playing in darkness, but we had light. I lifted my phone, fingers trembling. Take me online. As the doors of digital war opened, I braced. This wasn't just a smear, it was a battle for truth. And I was ready. The full clip, unedited, would drop tonight. They thought social media was their refuge. They forgot that transparency cuts deeper than lies. It was time to fight. I never planned to become a symbol. But when they made me one, I chose which story they'd tell. I stepped under the studio lights with the same calm I'd worn into that courtroom, but this time, there was no intention to hide. Every camera angle, every shot would carry my truth. Behind me, Alicia gave me a small nod. Naomi watched from the green room monitor, her expression steady. Across the desk, the host cleared his throat and I began. It's not easy to speak after being painted into a caricature. I said, voice soft but firm. I was never a trophy wife. I was a silent builder. I paused. Every brick of that $30 million came from years of strategy, hard choices, and anonymous risks. I saw the host lean forward, pen ready to mark the truth. Cut to my Instagram. The live stream had already begun rolling. Comments flooding faster than I could read. She speaks her truth. Finally, someone honest. The hashtag real Elena was already rising. Back in the studio, I pulled up the unedited courtroom footage. The moment I smiled, that breath held between tension and relief, played in full. No edit, no spin, just the truth. Then I showed a document, a timeline of shell companies, file stamps, equity percentages, all lined up in chronological proof. Alicia watched me as I told how each LLC was founded, how every transfer was legitimate, how I planned this long before the divorce proceedings. Naomi's face appeared on the monitor behind me. Her pride was quiet but explosive. Mid-interview, my phone vibrated. Daniel's message popped up on screen. Don't let them define your truth. I smiled and whispered, he's right. The audience murmured, engagement rising. I took a breath, allowing emotion to surface. I don't want admiration, I just want honesty. If that makes me a symbol, then I'll be a symbol worth facing the noise. The live segment closed, and the host leaned back impressed. Powerful, he said, Thank you for sharing the full story. The camera is cut off and I felt light, unburdened yet resolute. Later, in Naomi's archive server room, she and Alicia sifted through media analytics, spikes and impressions. Sentiment shifting positive. Naomi exhaled. They can't walk this back. Alicia added, we've flipped the tide. It's ours now. On Instagram, I went live once more, organic. Unscripted. I walked through my home. A silent authenticity that outshone curated profiles. People called me architect, visionary, survivor. Across every platform, #real Elena didn't stop, it trended. A ping broke the moment. My phone lit up with Victor's name. I stared before tapping answer. His low voice, laced with surprised praise. Are you still ready for London? Because now, the world's watching. The line went silent but my heart raced. London wasn't just a destination, it was the board where grander stakes awaited. I locked my phone and allowed a calm smile. The world had just heard my story. Now, the real game began. Victor wanted me ready, because the global stage would test not just my wealth, but my will. They built me a narrative. And now, I'd redefine every chapter that followed. I never planned to become a symbol. But when they made me one, I chose which story they'd tell. I stepped under the studio lights with the same calm I'd worn into that courtroom, but this time, there was no intention to hide. Every camera angle, every shot would carry my truth. Behind me, Alicia gave me a small nod. Naomi watched from the green room monitor. Her expression steady. Across the desk, the host cleared his throat and I began. It's not easy to speak after being painted into a caricature. I said, voice soft but firm. I was never a trophy wife. I was a silent builder. I paused. Every brick of that $30 million came from years of strategy, hard choices, and anonymous risks. I saw the host lean forward, pen ready to mark the truth. Cut to my Instagram. The live stream had already begun rolling. Comments flooding faster than I could read. She speaks her truth. Finally, someone honest. The #real Elena was already rising. Back in the studio, I pulled up the unedited courtroom footage. The moment I smiled, that breath held between tension and relief, played in full. No edit, no spin, just the truth. Then I showed a document, a timeline of shell companies, file stamps, equity percentages, all lined up in chronological proof. Alicia watched me as I told how each LLC was founded, how every transfer was legitimate, how I'd planned this long before the divorce proceedings. Naomi's face appeared on the monitor behind me. Her pride was quiet but explosive. Mid-interview, my phone vibrated. Daniel's message popped up on screen. Don't let them define your truth. I smiled and whispered, he's right. The audience murmured, engagement rising. I took a breath, allowing emotion to surface. I don't want admiration, I just want honesty. If that makes me a symbol, then I'll be a symbol worth facing the noise. The live segment closed, and the host leaned back impressed. Powerful, he said. Thank you for sharing the full story. The camera is cut off and I felt light, unburdened yet resolute. Later, in Naomi's archive server room, she and Alicia sifted through media analytics, spikes and impressions. Sentiment shifting positive. Naomi exhaled. They can't walk this back. Alicia added, we've flipped the tide. It's ours now. On Instagram, I went live once more, organic. Unscripted. I walked through my home. A silent authenticity that outshone curated profiles. People called me architect, visionary, survivor. Across every platform, #real Elena didn't stop, it trended. A ping broke the moment. My phone lit up with Victor's name. I stared before tapping answer. His low voice, laced with surprised praise. Are you still ready for London? Because now, the world's watching. The line went silent but my heart raced. London wasn't just a destination, it was the board where grander stakes awaited. I locked my phone and allowed a calm smile. The world had just heard my story. Now, the real game began. Victor wanted me ready, because the global stage would test not just my wealth, but my will. They built me a narrative. And now, I'd redefine every chapter that followed. He smirked when he ended the marriage. I smiled when I began my legacy. They say silence is golden, but tonight it felt like velvet. The snow fell softly outside my new lakeside home, dusting the ground in quiet serenity. Inside, candles flickered on a simple dinner table set for four, warmth in the winter darkness. Naomi raised her glass. Alicia leaned in with that look of quiet pride. And Daniel sat across, eyes calm and approving. It was Christmas Eve, but more than a holiday, it felt like rebirth. I held my glass steady. The wine was subtle, but the moment carried weight. I thought back to the courtroom, the smirk that first started it all, and the avalanche that followed. I'd always believed revenge was enough. But tonight, I realized it wasn't. Tonight, I'd become something more. To new beginnings, Naomi said softly, her toast resonating beyond words. We didn't just win, we rewrote the rules. We had the rules that said a woman must stay in the shadows. That hiding behind others made achievement suspect. I had dismantled that narrative, piece by piece, through courage, strategy, and an unwavering belief that my truth deserved a voice. Dinner conversation flowed easily, light laughter, updates on firm plans, glimpses of what came next. Daniel spoke of a burgeoning peace initiative he'd been nurturing. Alicia spoke of expanding legal reach. Naomi, well, she simply smiled and nodded. The architect behind gravity-shifting plans. When the plates were cleared, I excused myself. My footsteps crunched on the flagstone porch as I moved to the window. The lake lay silver under the snow, half frozen but fluid at its edges. Like promise and possibility, I pressed my palm against the glass. My breath fogged the pain, small clouds drifting upward, dissolving. You don't always get revenge. Sometimes you get better. That phrase echoed in my mind, the callback I needed. Revenge was hollow, but growth, legacy, purpose, those were lasting. I closed my eyes and pictured Brandon, his arrogance, his underestimation. He was absent, but no longer dangerous, not hurtful. His smirk shattered, tonight, without confrontation or punishment. He faded, replaced by my clarity. A ping on my phone broke the hush. A letter from the Global Women's Organization. Keynote speaker invitation accepted. My next chapter, far from legal battlegrounds, was becoming a platform for inspiration and transformation. I looked back at the table. Naomi leaned forward, eyes lighting up as I showed her. Daniel's smile was small but full of pride. Alicia exhaled in relief and joy, as though the weight had lifted and new horizons awaited. They were my tribe, allies, family, and in their presence, the legacy I began felt real, not performative. I returned to the table, voice steady. Thank you, I said, for seeing me, for standing by me. Their nods, their warmth, it was more than support. It was a recognition of who I truly was. Dinner resumed, laughter again filling the space. But my mind drifted back to the glass, to the snow, to that smile waiting. I slipped back to the window as the clock chimed midnight. A hush fell. Outside, the sky flared with silent fireworks, echoes of celebration elsewhere, but witnessed here in my heart. I exhaled, frost tracing patterns on the glass. A small, genuine smile curved my lips. This time, I'm not smiling for them. I'm smiling for me. And with that, I closed the window, leaving behind footprints on the newly fallen snow, symbols of a journey completed and one just beginning. The silence that followed wasn't emptiness, it was the sound of balance finally restored. After the public smirks and private betrayals, truth rose without needing to shout, like a long-buried fault line cracking open beneath polished floors. Justice didn't come fast, but when it arrived, it changed everything. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Some storms don't scream, they settle. And in that stillness, power returns to its rightful hands.